So at this point in time, I'm going to turn this over to Mayor Tom Rooney to do his annual economic development update for us.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Well, I want to respect your time, and I want to make sure I don't take too long up here. But before even starting this, I'm going to rat on Javier and Tom. They did not quite blow their horn as loud as they're entitled to. You might sit back and go, okay, well, you know, the residential rate is locked in, and that's not the rate we're going to get. You guys are going to have to negotiate one for us. Well, then, geez, I don't know what it would be, and all the rest. That's the position that all the cities were in back when this started up. And through some, I don't know, lapses in communication, we had a number of our neighbors right around us, 7 of them to be exact, who started running around even before their referendum were passed and saying, hey, we're all going to be in a great big group of 7 and that's going to get us a better rate than everybody. And they kind of used that as a reason to vote for the referendum. There were a number of the rest of us who thought it was a bit presumptuous to be talking about who was going to be in the game before the referendums were passed, and we refused to do that. And we kept hearing, well, geez, but then we're not part of the Big 7. Oh, well, then we're not part of the Big 7. And then they went out for their negotiations, good energy with Javier and Tom and all the rest. That 4.62 cents per kilowatt hour is in comparison to 4.77 cents that everybody else got in that great big group of 7. I promised Javier I wouldn't use the word skunked, so gee, Javier, I won't use it. But I think that their negotiating skills, the proof is in the pudding. And you have to go up into Lake County to find a neighbor who got the same rate that we did. And quite frankly, they did it by cheating. They did it by going with a brown energy option. The Rolling Meadows option was 100% green energy and still got the lowest rate of anybody touching us. And you have to get yourself to Lake County to find somebody who got a better rate than we did. So I think that they were perhaps a bit too modest in overlooking that. I would say that we all know that past performance is no guarantee, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and we all find the best stockbrokers we can. The City of Rolling Meadows is very pleased with the work they did for us, and we would encourage you to hook on to Good Energy's train. We think they're great folks. So on that note, we're going to start this State of the City address, and if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to start on a note that's not so fun. If you were in the City of Rolling Meadows, 2012, the year in review, is always going to be remembered for one thing. And so I would like to start this in memoriam of our very good friend, our 3rd Ward Alderman, Larry Buskey. His cancer caught up with him in December. I know that I just spoke with a resident last week who still hadn't heard. I know a number of you might not have. Larry was a frequent participant at these brunches or lunches. I know he came around to a number of the chamber events, and so if you don't mind, a couple things we tried to give you advance notice on. I'd like to give you advance notice on what's going to be run in the next city newsletter under my column. Yes, I know it's been a couple of months since Alderman Larry Buskey's passing. Yes, the transition on the City Council has already taken place. But I just can't use this first column since Larry's passing for anything other than some words about my friend. Larry Buskey was a great big teddy bear. Sure, he could growl with the best of them. The world he grew up in was a world where men were pretty gruff. But on the inside, Larry had a huge sentimental heart. Nothing could turn him into absolute mush like his 4 little granddaughters. I even remember seeing him when their little curly-haired dog had to be put to sleep. It was a side of Larry that most people who watch council meetings never got to see. Everyone who knew Larry knew that he loved this city. A very big part of that sentimental heart was devoted to Rolling Meadows. Many people talk about the place they grew up with. Many people talk about the place they grew up in with a very special fondness. But Larry's special fondness was reserved for the place where he built his business and where he and his beloved wife Brenda built their family. Larry and I did not start off as friends, but we became friends very quickly. He and I even had 2 very big knockdown, drag-out fights with each other over city business. But once they were over and the votes were taken, we shook hands, literally, dusted ourselves off, figuratively, and continued right along with a friendship that was truly a treasure for me. I miss you, Lair. I think anybody who works for the city will know that I'm exactly right when I say if Larry were here, he would probably say, all right, quit the fat mouthing and get on with it. And so I think in Larry's memory we will. So we'll come back to this slide here for the state of the city. I just don't like these chains. I'm a teacher. I'm not used to staying in one place. So if you'll pardon me a little bit while I rip up the tape here. All right, the state of the city. For today's topics that we're going to be taking a look at as we go along, I'd like to just run through as quick as I can where we are today, the ups and downs of 2012, projects to know about, city finances, and the big news. And I'm going to squeeze through them all quickly because my English teacher colleagues would not like me ending with a preposition in that third one. So we're going to move right to where we are. My occupational hazard is bringing economics into everything I talk about. And so as everybody talks about some of the things that are the downs in the local economy, I think we all need to remember where we are as a nation. So for example, this is the exact slide I showed you last year. Something I had to put together because I couldn't find a decent enough graph, but I teach this stuff, so I threw it together. If you want to see the progress that went on between last year and this year, yeah, there it is. So that's the nationwide economy. Does it help explain a little bit why things haven't taken off like rockets yet? Now, one of the things that annoys us all as economics teachers and annoys economists is that trough there in the graph, that's just not debatable. Sorry, it just isn't. The lowest point in the trough is where the recession ends. I talked a little bit about this last year as well. That at that point, there is no debate anymore. The recession is over. But people wag their finger at economists all the time and say, what? Take a look around you. Can't you see everything still stinks? Well, of course we can. The period to get back up to the green line is called a recovery. And the analogy we always make is to a patient that just had surgery. You're not yelling at your doctor during the recovery that you're not running a marathon yet. You know it's going to take a little time to get back up. When the recovery ends is debatable. There are some people who say it ends once that blue line crosses the green line. Well, that is one way of looking at it. But as I showed you on another slide last year, this is the very same slide, this is when you take the GDP, the measuring stick, and divide it by the number of people. And quite frankly, there's another arm of economics that says until the red line passes the green line, the recovery's not quite over yet. And the progress from last year to this year is just that. So we should all keep this in mind as everybody's contracts are slowly coming back up, as all the businesses in all the towns around us, not just Rolling Meadows, are a little slow to fill. This is where the whole nation is, and I think it puts a good perspective on the whole thing. So if we take a look at our own little corner of the world with Rolling Meadows, we just did where we are, let's get to the ups and downs of 2012. In terms of some ups in 2012 that relate directly to the business community, we've got a bunch of new businesses that we have here, and using the same tabulating that I used last year, that was my little symbol for how many new businesses we had. This year there were 85 that opened their doors in the city of Rolling Meadows that were not here before. If you add to that home occupations, of which we got 14 of them, roughly the rate of 1 a month, for 2012, we had 99 new businesses. Last year, the number was a little bit over 100, so we've taken a small step back, but we're still right around 100 new businesses that have opened up in this city. I think that's pretty good vitality, especially considering the stuff that I was just showing you about the way the economy is in general. Among those new businesses, we've got people like Adidas, Adidas America. It's kind of a corporate bit that's in the old 3Com building. They've come in. It's a very recognizable name. Advocate Physician Partners, last year, that was part of the big news. It was telling you, hey, they were coming. They're here. They're in Continental Towers and they're open for business. The Weber Grill restaurant, no, we don't have a restaurant for them in Rolling Meadows. But the corporate headquarters for all the Weber Grill restaurants came into town and is now a member of the Rolling Meadows community. We've got Lincoln Financial Group that was also announced last year. They would be coming. They did. They're up and running. And sure, you know, Rafal and Corey and where they work has been in Rolling Meadows for years. But that distribution center that Linda talked about is a new wing. They've got a new name. All this economic activity is going on in the city of Rolling Meadows. So these are just 5 examples of very recognizable things that are going on in our town. So the downs, I did say I'd do them both, and you know, politicians are always putting the positive spin on and hiding the negative. We don't do that around here. So yeah, if you're me, you've been pummeled quite a bit over the last 6 or 7 months because of this, okay? Carol, I want you to notice I got a little plug for you right here in my picture, right? Okay. Yeah, this has been the thing that everybody is beating Mike and I and all the other council guys about the face and neck with all the time. How did the post office close, and so forth and so on. Across the street, not too far away, yeah, it's true, we lost the bowling alley as well. And a number of people have been saying this was a place my kids could go. I don't know what's going to go there next, but it probably won't be a kid thing. And of course, we don't like to see them leave. And then of course, Old Country Buffet closed its doors too. But I think I get to yank that one quickly off this screen because it's, if not full technically yet, it's about to be. The Flaming Grill is going to be opening. It's an Asian style buffet, so the property was already set up for a new buffet person to come in. And if it's not quite open yet, it's going to be open very soon. And so that one has cycled over. We're not expecting that with the post office. We're not expecting that with the bowling alley. And people keep saying, what are you guys doing? How come we lost those? Everybody's talking about that it's somehow or another an embarrassment for our town that we lost our post office and the rest. Well, I would like to respectfully disagree. And economists call them pictures when they put things like this up on the screen. And I'm sure this isn't a surprise to anybody. This is post office activity going back for the last 10 years. My little joke that I've been using lately is, I want to meet the mayor of Saturday so that I can tell him I feel bad for him. Because I'm sure that the mayor of Saturday is getting beaten up by his residents even more than we are. Because, oh my goodness, they're not getting mail at all anymore. Those people in Saturday, come August, should it really surprise us that anybody in that position is going to have to start closing the smallest things first? One of the things we like about Rolling Meadows is we're the small hometown place that's in the middle of all the big over-bustled places. When you talk about our nearest neighbors, I can think of at least 2 spots in each town where I won't even try to drive through at 7 in the morning or 5 in the afternoon. Won't even go anywhere near it because I know I can't get through. And there's not a single one of those in Rolling Meadows. We like being the calm in the middle of the storm of everybody around us and all the hustle and bustle. So should it really surprise us that in a situation like that one for the post office, or in a situation like that one for bowling all around the country, you've got an almost 0.25% drop off in the adults who bowl, the biggest money spenders over the last 10 years. Should it really surprise us that the smallest places close first? I don't think we're doing anything wrong in Rolling Meadows. I think that a lot of the trends that are going on hit smaller places first. So with that little, admittedly bit of a spin on some of the things that are going on, we've covered where we are, we've covered the ups and downs of 2012, and now there are some projects to know about. In the good news that is bad news that is good news category, I guess, we can start off talking about Gulf Road. Last year, I showed you the same picture, said these are the plans, and last year, for those of you who are here, you might remember my one little slip up was when I stepped on my own joke and hit the clicker one time too many and brought in that little logo for the Cub fans. saying, sorry, Gulf Road is yet again not going to happen. We've been waiting for a number of years, and we knew then it still wasn't going to happen. Well, if you're a Cub fan, you better still have some faith this year, and all we can offer you is faith for this year. But if you're a Rolling Meadows business, if you're a Rolling Meadows resident, what we can tell you is Gulf Road is going to be going through this year. As a matter of fact, I think this has to be a joke. April 1st is when they're starting the construction. Now, that's probably true. I did check my calendar, and it is a Monday, and they tend to start these things on a Monday. But, well, actually, now that Men in Black scene with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith going up to the house just came to mind. If anybody thinks this is IDOT's idea of a joke, they would probably respond the same way he did. No, ma'am, we at the Illinois Department of Transportation do not have a sense of humor we're aware of. And so that will actually be the start time. A little bit before that, it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be crazy for about 7 months. To get this project done, they're going to be cutting it down to 1 lane in each direction. And if you can imagine that particular area trying to get through with 1 lane in each direction, there's no way to sugarcoat this. It's going to be 7 months of pain for anybody who's involved. I know you can't really see really well, but that's I-90 coming in on the slant. That's New Wilkie Road. That's still that portion more toward the left. And it doesn't quite go all the way down to Algonquin, but it's close. And because it's close, those lane closures are going to start at Algonquin, and they're going to start even west of the expressway. Now, you might be saying to yourself, I hope this pain is all going to be worth it. We really think it will. There's going to be an additional lane in each direction. So not just 1 additional lane, but 2 additional lanes. And to get onto New Wilkie Road, there will no longer just be 1 left turn lane, there will be 2 left turn lanes. And so for anybody like me who tries to come home from that area, that 1 left turn lane just doesn't cut it to have 2 like a lot of the other places. We really think that once the pain of giving birth to this whole project is done, we're all going to be really happy with the results, and that whole intersection should flow a whole lot better. Another thing you might want to know about is commuter drive. If you're familiar with this angle of the Arlington Park Station, the way you get out of there technically to the west, we call it commuter drive. And it's an interjurisdictional thing with Arlington Heights and ourselves. We tried to get Palatine to come play with us. They were a little resistant about being a full partner in the thing, even though a lot of their folks benefit too. But basically what we're talking about here is this kind of sort of bluish area that you can see isn't really it. It's that thin little stripe that runs all the way out to Rolling Road that you can see there in the upper left. This is supposed to start construction during the summertime, and when it's going to be under construction, you're not going to be able to get to the train station from that Rolling Road entrance. It will not be an entrance during the construction process. It will only be an exit. So people will still be able to get into the train station and out of the train station from the Euclid Avenue entrance that a lot of us use, but you're only going to be getting out onto Rolling Road for quite a while. And anybody who has a regular traffic pattern of coming in from that side is just going to know they're not going to be able to do that. But if you've ever driven down commuter drive, once you picked your fillings up off the bottom of your car seat and popped them back in, you know that that road is seriously in need of repair. We've been trying to get this project done for I don't even know how long, and it's finally coming about. It will be happening this year. So with those projects to know about in our little cycle here, let's get to city finances. This is just something I thought I would throw in quickly because I actually did this last year, bringing my amateur economics and kind of cross-referencing it with the work that Melissa Gallagher does with her people in the finance department. We tried to make some of this a little bit more understandable for the council as part of its long-range process and for the people as well. And I think people forget lots of times that when we talk about the taxpayers of Rolling Meadows, we're talking about you just as much as we're talking about them. Even if you don't live here, business taxes, of course, are kind of the thing that everybody seems to try to forget about when they talk about the taxes of a city. So, for example, If you take a look at our area, we don't just want to look at Rolling Meadows right here. The three people who directly touch us are Schaumburg, Palatine, and Arlington Heights. And we throw in three more for good measure: Hoffman Estates, Elk Grove, and Mount Prospect. We are the smallest one in this bunch, but quite frankly, a lot of the comparables are things that people are always comparing us to all the time. So if we take a look at something called revenue burden, there's a number of statistics that are being used, and some of them aren't really very good statistics. But one of them that has the stamp of approval from professors of public administration is an idea called revenue burden. And it's basically trying to look at the entire tax take that somebody takes in as a government, no matter what the source is. And it doesn't go by population, it doesn't go by business count, it goes by the EAV that you're taxing. And so basically they say it's a good yardstick to use to compare different sized towns. So, for example, in the city of Rolling Meadows, our revenue burden would be 2.04. What does that mean? Well, it's just a number that we're going to use as a baseline. But if you want to know what it means taxing roughly 2.04% of the EAV in our area. About 2.04% of the $2.04% of the EAV is generated in tax money through to the city. If you take a look at our neighbors, here's how their numbers stack up. So yeah, I suppose Arlington Heights can pat itself a little bit on the back and say, hey, our taxes are a little bit lower than yours. Yeah, looking at it from a revenue burden perspective, I guess they are. But if you take a look at the 7 around us, well, we're third. That's not a bad statistic to have in your back pocket. If we want to take a look, oh, sorry, I almost forgot. There's a push me, pull you that happens every time you do a speech like this. Okay, what information can I talk about? Okay, what information can I talk about? What can I release? What can I tell them about? And yeah, well, Melissa gets to win the arm wrestling contest on this one. There are audits to be done. You're not really supposed to be jumping the gun on audits. So we're not exactly sure, but I've colored that arrow red. It's going to be a little higher this year. That is the wrong direction. And the City Council has already said in our next budget process, we want to do things a little differently because that revenue burden should not be going up, especially as growth is happening. It should be coming down. If you want to take a look at another statistic, like the debt level of the city, this is for everything, meaning not just your general revenue fund, but for your water service and your all the enterprise funds that cities have and the rest. The city of Rolling Meadows, if you look at it overall, our debt is about 65% of our total take. Of all the taxes that we come in with, our debt level is about 65% of 1 year's worth of taxes. If you take a look at our neighbors, again, we're in third place out of 7, but you'll notice it's a different 2 that are beating us, and it's a different set of folks who are a little bit further behind. And everybody has enterprise funds, everybody has a general fund. If you're Schaumburg, you also have the Renaissance Center, and the debt that's associated with that makes it go that high. If you're Hoffman Estates, you're still dealing with the Sears Center, and it adds another chunk onto you right there. And the rest of us cities have kind of dodged that bullet. Arlington Heights technically has the metropolis, but that's a little bit different of a ballgame. So when you talk about the debt burden, everybody's talking about the national debt these days, which we should be screaming about. Our debt burden here in the city of Rolling Meadows is a pretty manageable and responsible one, we think. Now, we do know that because of some bond refunding that we did throughout the year, that's going to save us some money. And the fact that we have not gone further and are making our payments, this time next year, we'll be able to report that. As a matter of fact, this summer, we'll be able to report that as being lower than it was at this time last year. So the deleveraging that everybody's talking about regular people doing, we're doing it too. If you want to just take a look at the general funds, this is the actual taxing side. Sometimes people go, I get when you raise my water because of the city of Chicago, but taxes are all under your control. Well, if we look at our debt level just in the general fund and the things we owe there, the number is 80%, which is a little bit higher than 65, but then again, so is everybody else's. And again, we're kind of middle of the pack here. Those are the other numbers that are associated. So we consider this a little bit of proof of responsibility here in the city. And we also know that that's going to go down as well. So by the summer, that number will even be smaller. And then finally, yeah, we don't sugarcoat stuff. We don't just put out the good stuff and leave the bad stuff alone. One of the things that we discovered, which the finance department had been telling us, but when you look graphically at the cash position of the city of Rolling Meadows, the amount you have on hand compared to your liabilities, at 12%, that was a pretty ugly number. And people go, well, okay, if that's the baseline, yeah, that's the cash position of our neighbors. And last summer, when we did this before the budget process, we said, this just can't continue. And I think the finance department raised their eyes to heaven and said, thank God somebody's listening now, because this has been one of the things that they've been talking about. If you use another way of calculating, which is taking in receivables that could be counted as cash, well then, hey, that'll bring us up a little higher to 20%. But then everybody else gets to do it too, and they get a bigger bump than we do out of it. So we already know, I'm sneaking something in a tiny bit here with Melissa. We already know that that number is going to improve. We already know that that number will be roughly 24%, which is a doubling of last year's up, and which is an increase even over the green block by 4%. We said something needs to be done. They're doing it, and they're managing things better. We're making better decisions that's bringing that cash position up. So hopefully this summer we'll be able to toot a little bit about moving in the right direction. Just as shareholders in the community, I thought you might be interested in or entitled to that information. So now we've covered all of these things here, and we finish off with the big news. The big news that we have. Capital, what? That's not a surprise? Oh yeah, Linda already said that, darn. So Capital One, they're here in Rolling Meadows now? That's not big enough news for you? Okay, well, if you're not real impressed by that, okay, our friends at Weichai are going to be doing a really nice facelift on Gulf Road. They came in, they got their sign permit. You don't seem real impressed. You're not real impressed? You're looking for something a little bit more earth-shattering? Yes. Or maybe screen-shattering, maybe? Is that a little better for big news? Yeah. Let me tell you, this freaking turd of a spot that we've had in the city of Rolling Meadows for going on 8 years now, and the litany that has been just crazy of having a property owner sit and collect checks from Dominic's and watch this thing just run down. The end of the saga is actually in sight. They are on a very ambitious schedule here to do the outside renovation and the inside renovation at the same time. You may not recognize the name Uncle Joe's Tuscan Fresh Market, but Nat Caputo has a last name that lots of people recognize. Uncle Joe is the same Joe of the Caputo's chain. Nat is going to run a new flag underneath Caputo's and is going to be out here coming into the city along with Clark Street Development, the folks who purchased the property at this time last year. They're going to be into our Plan Commission. They're going to be into our City Council next month. And they have a target date of being open on October 1st. And so by the end of 2013, this saga of the most noticeable downside of Rolling Meadows should have a whole new face on the outside, it should have a whole new face on the inside, and it should be something that everybody looks forward to. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the state of the city of 2013.